So today's video we are going through me rebuilding and upgrading my current PC. I hope you all enjoy. So I am upgrading from an Intel CPU to an AMD CPU, reason being just that I need the performance for the games that I like playing so much. The majority of the games I play tend to be Sims, as well as from time to time playing those Sims in VR. Half the time I'm probably playing a Sim or a first person shooter. You'll probably see a lot of dust coming out of this PC because I haven't cleaned it in a good 4 or 5 months since I last opened it up like this to take out all the components and put them back in. I usually like to do a big deep clean every 3 to 4 months, but this time it's gone way past that. As well as having an upgrade, I thought might as well clean it. So right now I am removing the GPU, which is an MSI GTX 1080 Ti Gaming Trio X. That's a mouthful to say. Quite a dusty thing, and it still runs pretty well in 2024 with all these modern games. Now onto removing all the little connectors off the motherboard, just so I can prepare it and remove it entirely with the CPU and RAM still installed. Speaking of which, the CPU is an Intel i7 7700 running on DDR4 2400 MHz RAM, which when I ran this PC I had them overclocked to 2666. It was a 4x8 configuration, so making 32 gigs of RAM in total, plenty for what I needed at the time. Now as you can see I'm removing the case fans, they're a bit of a hassle. Currently you can see I've got my radiator front mounted for my CPU, which was helpful to keeping the temps low. I'm aware that brings all the hot air from the CPU into the case, making the entire system run a little bit warmer. AIO you can see me removing here is the Arctic Liquid Freezer 240 Series 2. These components have such a mouthful to say, but it's a very good AIO that I've had for quite a while since I've had this PC. It's managed to keep this processor quite cool. I've never had it peak over 70 degrees running under full load. I'll be interested to see how it runs on the AMD processor. Now with the motherboard finally out, I'm on to removing the standoff screws for the AIO, which I will probably need for the next motherboard. For removing the residual thermal paste left on the CPU and the AIO copper plate, I use some alcohol based wipes to take them off, so I can have it prepared for the next motherboard. Now for storage, I've got a 256 NVMe Gen 4. Having this just makes Windows load a lot faster, and being the drive I keep Windows on makes formatting and resetting Windows a lot easier. Now removing the front fans, which the top two are for the radiators. You can see these were a bit of a difficult process to get in. You had to sandwich the case between the fan and the radiator. You know this PC has been cleaned for a while, as you can see by the layer of dust everywhere, including that massive layer of dust on the radiator. That is ridiculous. Now with the remainder of the fans removed, it's on to the power supply to get that out and dusted before putting it back in when we install the motherboard. Just fiddling around with a bit more wires and untangling them, we can take out the hard drives. That's one of the 2TB ones, and out comes the 1TB hard drive. If I can figure it out, there we go. Next, the power supply, just untangling the rest of the wires left. And as we're there, we might as well show the cat some love. Now for a bit more dusting, getting the little nooks and crannies out. Just make sure it's properly dusted, so when I put it all back together, I don't have to worry about dusting it for another 3 months. Now I spend a good time going through each component, make sure it's free of dust. I'm not taking them all fully apart, just as they are individually, cleaning them, making sure they're nice and clean to go back fresh when I reinstall the entire system. Once the case is completely empty, I move on to prepping the CPU and the motherboard ready to be put into the system. This includes me changing the backplate for the CPU socket, as AIO has different brackets and adapters for it to work on both AMD and Intel systems. Quick little dust to make sure it's clean, and onto checking the backplate. I was stuck on this for quite a while and realised I don't need to change the backplate, I just needed to fit the AMD mounting kit, which luckily I kept the original box, otherwise I wouldn't be able to install this AIO on it. Now the upgraded CPU of choice is the Ryzen 7 5800X3D. It's a very power hungry chip, but it has its trade-offs. It does run hot due to the level 3 cache that's placed on top of the die, making it a bit less thermal efficient for the actual CPU for it to cool down, thus idling at higher temperatures, as well as under load it will run hotter. Now unfortunately I didn't realise my camera stopped recording, and so now you've got a big jump of me already putting the radiator into the case as well as the motherboard. The motherboard has DDR4 RAM as well. Funny enough, it looks exactly the same as my old RAM. 32GB of capacity again, but a lot higher speeds this time, running at 3200 MHz. I've overclocked them currently with their XMP profile to 3600 MHz, so it runs a lot faster. So the next step, I got into sorting out the front panel connectors. We've got the USB 3.0 and the audio and other USB peripherals that I needed to plug in. You can see now that I've decided to top mount my radiator instead of putting it on the front again like I did last time. Reason being, I just wanted more clearance on the GPU, as the shroud of the GPU was quite close to the radiator, as well as, well, thinking back now, the CPU is going to run hotter, so if I can get that hot air out quicker, it would be better. Now with the front fans installed, we can get on to cable managing. This is not my favourite task to do, but it has to be done. Putting the case back together now, and sorting out the front panel connectors with the power switch, reset button and the lights. This process was quite fiddly and it did take me a little bit, so I'll skip forward here. Now that everything's mostly been put back together, wires all connected, I go grab a power supply cable to plug it in and now start testing it to see if it all works. Currently I'm checking to see if all fans are spinning and if they're giving out air, as well as testing out the front panel buttons such as the power and the reset button. Last thing you want is to get them wrong and have to go back to redoing the front panel connectors. Good thing I got them right first time, because now we can move on to mounting the GPU. We put the GPU in first, so we figure out where the sag bracket can go. The sag bracket is really more of a thing just to keep the GPU level. Once that's all in, I can now go back and test again to see if all the buttons work. And you can see there I've got a bit of excitement that it all works. It's just me double checking if it's posting and restarting the way I want it to. You can see the GPU's going, it's got powers connected, which is a good sign, which makes me very happy knowing that I've managed to put this PC back together. All that remains is to put the side panel back on, as well as the front side panel, so we can see inside the case, as well as the mesh that goes on top as a filter for the radiator. This case was a good steal a while ago on Amazon. Managed to buy it for £40. This is the MSI Mag Vampiric 010. Has a nice tempered side panel, basic RGB function on the front panel, There is a version of this case, a bit newer, that you can control the front panel RGB with an RGB hub that comes with the case, but unfortunately this was on sale at the time and I got this and I was happy with it. As you just saw, I was cleaning the side panel. Nice tinted tempered glass, looks good that you can see all inside, but unfortunately I don't have much RGB, and that pretty much rounds up the build. Now I'm looking at admiring it, see if it all works again. So for summary, the old components were the Intel Core i7-7700, DDR4 RAM at 2400 MHz, overclocked to 2600 MHz on the Asus ROG Strix Z270H. The new components are the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D, 3200 MHz DDR4 RAM, same amount as the previous time, 32GB. They have also been overclocked to 3600 MHz and are paired with the Gigabyte Gaming B550 XV2. That's such a mouthful with all these components. So thank you for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. Next video coming up following this will be me playing some games and doing some benchmark runs with the new components inside my PC. Thanks for watching again, any suggestions or comments let me know down below, drop a like.